When you break your arm, an X-ray gives you this kind of binary certainty.
Oh, absolutely.
Like it's just a jagged white line on a black background.
Right. There's no arguing with it.
Exactly. The doctor just points at the screen and says, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is entirely objective. It's visible.
Totally visible.
But, and think about this.
Mm-hmm.
When you are sitting in your living room, completely alone, in just agonizing pain, and you're trying to communicate a dental emergency over the phone.
Oh, to a receptionist you've never even met.
Yes. That clinical certainty, it just vanishes entirely.
It's completely gone.
You are suddenly relying on nothing but like your vocabulary and your tone of voice to prove your invisible pain to a gatekeeper.
Because in that exact moment, you aren't talking to a doctor who can heal you.
Right.
You are talking to an administrative system that needs to process you.
Process you, exactly.
And honestly, that is a completely different skill set.
It really is. And it's a skill set we rarely think about until we are literally forced to use it.
Yeah, usually when we're at our worst.
Exactly. So welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm Bruce.
And I'm Mia.
And today we are looking at a specific English learning dialogue that exposes the hidden mechanics of how we navigate these incredibly fraught, incredibly human moments.
It's so fascinating.
It is. And whether you are actively learning a new language and trying to master the unwritten rules of real-world interactions.
Which is incredibly hard.
So hard.
Yeah.
Or maybe you are just prepping to navigate a healthcare maze of your own.
Right.
Or, honestly, even if you are just intensely curious about the hidden dynamics of human communication under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
We have tailored this entire conversation specifically for you.
We really have.
So for today's deep dive, we are pulling from a really fascinating piece of source material.
Yeah, we're looking at excerpts from an English educational audio program.
Right. And it's titled The Emergency Dental Appointment Dialogue.
With the subtitle, Health Conversations Made Easy.
Right. Health Conversations Made Easy. And our mission today is to completely deconstruct this text.
Like take it entirely apart.
Exactly. We want to analyze how this source takes a high-stakes, incredibly stressful scenario and just breaks it down into manageable components.
Because, on the surface, this just looks like a very basic language lesson.
Just a standard textbook dialogue, yeah.
But underneath, it is literally a blueprint for modern social survival.
The survival guide, yes.
It serves as this masterclass in breaking down panic into a process.
Oh, I love that. Panic into process.
Yeah, and educational texts like this are incredibly valuable to study because they sort of, they strip away all the messiness of real life.
Right, the real-world chaos.
Exactly. They remove the crying, the pacing around the room, the frustration.
Actual pain.
Right. And they leave us with the bare mechanics of what society expects from us when we ask for help.
So, okay, let's unpack this. Let's look at the actual scenario the source provides.
Let's do it.
It is incredibly straightforward. It simply says, quote, Bruce has a painful tooth and needs to find an emergency opening over the phone.
Which is funny.
Yeah. Fictional Bruce is our test subject here.
Yeah.
Purely a coincidence on the name, by the way.
A very unlucky coincidence for fictional Bruce.
Extremely unlucky.
Yeah.
But the constraints that are compounding on this guy are just intense.
Oh, they really are.
First of all, it's not just a standard, Tuesday afternoon checkup.
No, the source explicitly uses the phrase emergency opening.
Right. And in the medical and dental world, that phrase emergency opening carries massive weight.
It really does. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it implies an immediate disruption of order.
Oh, disruption, right.
Think about it. The clinic has a schedule, a rhythm, this established flow for the day.
Like a finely tuned machine.
Exactly. And fictional Bruce is calling in to ask them to interrupt that flow.
He's throwing a wrench in the gears.
He is. And think about the word choice there, too. Opening.
Not an appointment.
Right, not an appointment, an opening.
Yeah, because an appointment is something you, mutually agree upon weeks in advance.
You negotiate it calmly.
Exactly. But an opening, that implies a gap in a solid brick wall.
That's a great way to put it.
It implies this massive scarcity of availability.
Yeah.
You are competing against a full calendar.
Mm-hmm.
Against the dentist's time.
Yeah.
And against other people's emergencies, too.
Exactly. You aren't the only one in pain.
Right. So you are essentially asking the receptionist to carve out a space for your sudden chaos in their perfectly planned day.
Which completely shifts the dialogue, from a casual consumer inquiry to a high-priority negotiation.
It is a negotiation.
It absolutely is. You have to convince the person on the other end of the line that your specific situation warrants breaking their rules.
And that brings up the second major constraint fictional Bruce is facing.
The medium.
Yes, the medium of the communication. The source specifically highlights that this interaction happens, quote, over the phone.
Which changes everything.
That is the detail that really caught my eye. Fictional Bruce is completely stripped of all his nonverbal communication tools.
They're just gone.
Right. When you are in physical pain, your absolute first instinct is to physically show someone.
You point to where it hurts.
Exactly. You point to your swollen jaw, you wince.
Your posture sort of slumps.
Yeah. Your body language is doing the heavy lifting of screaming, help me, I am suffering.
But over the phone, that entire visual vocabulary is gone.
It's useless. You have none of that.
The receptionist cannot see your swollen cheek.
No.
They cannot see the tears in your eyes or how pale you are.
Right.
They can only process the acoustic data that you are sending them.
Acoustic data. I love that phrasing.
Well, it's true. You are entirely reliant on linguistic precision and vocal modulation to paint a picture of your pain.
It's like, okay, imagine you are trying to defuse a bomb.
Okay, high stakes.
Very high stakes. But you have to do it while reading the instruction manual aloud.
Oh, wow.
Right. You have all this vital data, in this case, your physical health, your pain, your urgency. But the only way to retrieve it and fix the system is by using an interface that only accepts very specific, rigid command prompts.
That is such a good analogy.
Like if you just mash the keyboard, or in this case, if you just scream into the phone, the system crashes.
It rejects you entirely.
It rejects you. You have to translate your complex, overwhelming internal state into the exact syntax the bureaucratic interface requires.
That is a phenomenal way to look at it. You are trying to interface with a rigid system while your own hardware is failing.
Yes, your hardware is failing.
And this highlights why the source material frames this entire lesson under the banner of Health Conversations Made Easy.
Right.
Because the pedagogical intent here is profound. When a person is in physical pain, their cognitive load is severely compromised.
Oh, absolutely.
Pain literally eats up your brain's processing power.
It's a distraction you can't ignore.
Exactly. It degrades your executive function.
Right when you need it the most.
Precisely.
You are sitting there, your tooth is just throbbing, and instead of being able to just exist in that pain, you are required to be articulate.
Articulate, persuasive.
Persuasive, yes.
Yeah.
And incredibly polite to a receptionist.
And that is the paradox the textbook is trying to solve here.
Unpack that.
Well, it recognizes that in a moment of physiological distress, you really cannot rely on improvisation.
No, you can't just wing it.
Exactly. You need a script.
A script.
Yeah. The source is arming the language learner with specific, reliable linguistic tool phrases they can memorize and deploy almost automatically.
So they don't have to think about it.
Right, so they can maintain clarity when their brain is otherwise consumed by agony.
Wow.
It is essentially providing a cognitive shortcut.
I really appreciate how the source doesn't shy away from the medium either, like the phone call.
Yeah, that's crucial.
Because in our modern era, we try to text or use apps for absolutely everything.
Oh, totally. Everything is an app.
We book our flights, our dinners, even our regular doctor checkups through these digital portals. But the source material highlights the phone call because in a true emergency, you often have to bypass those digital forms.
You do.
You need a human being to hear your voice and make a subjective judgment call to squeeze you in.
Because an online booking system lacks empathy.
Completely.
But it also lacks flexibility.
Oh, that's true.
If the digital calendar shows 0 available slots, the computer simply says no.
It's just a blank screen.
Yeah, there is absolutely no negotiating with an algorithm.
Right.
But a receptionist on the phone, they hold the discretionary power to create that emergency opening.
They have the keys to the castle.
They do. They can double book a room, they can shorten a lunch break, they can shuffle things around on the schedule.
But they will only do that if your verbal advocacy is effective.
Exactly.
The words you use are your only leverage.
That's all you have.
And you have to walk this terrifying tightrope, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You have to sound urgent enough that they don't just tell you to, like, take an ibuprofen and call back next week.
Right. They need to know it's real.
But you have to remain calm enough that they can actually understand your request and process your information.
It requires a remarkable degree of emotional regulation.
It really does.
You are managing an internal crisis while simultaneously managing an external administrative puzzle.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. You must participate in a social contract, selecting the right verbs and modulating your tone while experiencing a localized trauma.
So we've established the immense pressure fictional Bruce is under.
Yeah, he's in a tough spot.
We know the constraints of the phone call and the urgency of the opening. But how does the source actually teach the learner to bridge that gap?
That's the key.
Right, like what are the actual words they are supposed to use?
Well, this is where the curriculum of the text does something really unexpected.
Oh, yeah.
The highlights of the lesson are listed as, quote, describing symptoms, toothache, cleaning.
Yeah, that is a jarring grouping of concepts.
It really is.
I don't get this. I really don't. From a purely linguistic standpoint, why would an educational textbook lump a severe emergency in with a routine teeth cleaning?
It seems strange, right?
It's bizarre. So what does this all mean for how we categorize our health?
That's a great question.
Because a cleaning is not a symptom.
No, it's not.
If I call the dentist and say, yes, I am experiencing the symptoms of a cleaning, they're going to think I've lost my mind.
They would be very confused.
A toothache is a bodily feeling. It is pain. A cleaning is a requested service. It's a medical transaction.
Yeah, exactly.
The source text completely blurs the lines between communicating an internal physical reality and communicating a desired consumer outcome.
What's fascinating here is that it seems completely counterintuitive at first glance.
Totally.
But if we analyze it through the lens of functional linguistics...
Okay, functional linguistics.
Yeah, it actually makes perfect sense.
I'm listening.
The textbook is not teaching medical science or anatomy.
Right.
It is teaching the pragmatics of scheduling.
Unpack that for me. How does a toothache and a cleaning serve the same pragmatic function?
Well, think about the structure of the conversation from the perspective of the receptionist.
Okay.
Their primary goal is to fill in the data fields of their scheduling software.
Right, they're looking at a screen with empty boxes.
Exactly. And one of those required fields is the reason for visit.
Oh.
Yeah. So in the grammar of the appointment phone call, I have a toothache and I need a cleaning, occupy the exact same structural slot.
Wow.
They are paradigmatic substitutes for one another.
Ah, I see. So the receptionist doesn't care about the philosophical or emotional difference between acute pain and preventative maintenance.
Not in that specific moment, no.
They just need the variable to plug into the equation.
Precisely.
That is wild.
By teaching listeners how to describe both a severe toothache and a routine cleaning in the very same lesson, the source is demonstrating the full spectrum of dental communication.
The two absolute poles of the communication spectrum.
Exactly. On one end, you have high urgency, emotion-driven communication.
My tooth is killing me.
Right. And on the other end, you have low urgency, logic-driven communication.
I'm due for a polish.
Yes. But the linguistic framework you use to initiate the service is structurally identical.
That is so interesting.
The caller must learn to package vastly different human experiences into the same standardized linguistic box.
It's like the textbook is acknowledging the reality of institutional triage.
Oh, for sure.
The medical system views your agonizing toothache as just another data point to be inputted, much like a request for polishing. It entirely removes the emotional weight.
And, that removal of emotion is actually a crucial survival skill for the caller.
Really? How so?
Well, when you realize that the system operates on standardized inputs, it forces you to step out of your personal panic.
Oh, I see.
And it forces you to adopt the transactional language that the system requires to process you.
To speak their language.
Exactly. It can be strangely calming to realize you just have to provide the right data.
You are translating your humanity into their bureaucracy.
That's a perfect way to phrase it.
But let's look at the specific words being taught.
Okay.
Under describing symptoms, the source uses the word toothache. It is a very clinical, tidy noun.
Very neat.
But the reality of the experience is probably closer to, like, my jaw feels like it's vibrating and there's a stabbing sensation behind my right eye.
Right, it's visceral.
Very. But the textbook teaches the neat, compound noun, toothache.
Because systems struggle to process poetic or highly descriptive language.
They don't want the poetry of your pain.
No, they don't. If you spend 5 minutes describing the exact nuance of how your jaw is vibrating, you are actually slowing down the logistical process of getting help.
You're getting in your own way.
You are.
Yeah.
The clinical term toothache acts as a universally understood shorthand.
A shorthand.
Yes, it instantly categorizes the problem for the receptionist without overwhelming them with subjective details.
It creates distance, and that distance protects the receptionist from emotional fatigue, which in turn makes them more efficient at finding that emergency opening.
Exactly. Fictional Bruce is being taught not just how to speak English, but how to speak institution.
To speak institution, I love that.
It is the language of the modern patient.
Yeah.
You are an active participant in a health conversation, as the title implies.
Right.
But the conversation is fundamentally restricted by the parameters of the institution.
Which brings us to the most frustrating and honestly the most relatable part of this entire scenario.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because once fictional Bruce has successfully articulated his symptom,
Mm-hmm.
once he has managed to clearly state, I have a painful tooth and I need an emergency opening, the ordeal is not over.
Not even close.
He doesn't just get to hang up and drive to the clinic.
I wish.
The narrative forces this massive, abrupt gear shift. The final highlights provided from the source material reveal that the dialogue must immediately transition into suggesting times and confirming insurance.
This raises an important question about the shifting cognitive demands placed on a patient.
It really does.
Because articulating the problem does not automatically grant you the solution.
Nope.
You have merely initiated the process. Now, you must navigate the structural pillars of healthcare access.
It's emotional whiplash.
Totally.
I want you to imagine the reality of this. You have a throbbing, agonizing pain in your mouth.
Yeah.
You have just spent all your focus trying to remain calm and clearly communicate that pain to a complete stranger.
Mm-hmm.
And the very next second, the system demands that you stop talking about your distress and start playing calendar Tetris.
Calendar Tetris.
Suggesting times. You have to pivot from a highly subjective emotional state to negotiating objective bureaucratic data.
And this negotiation requires completely different mental posture.
Right?
When you are suggesting times, you are no longer just a passive victim begging for rescue.
You have to step up.
You do. You are coordinating a mutual window of opportunity.
Wow.
It requires you to access your own schedule, anticipate travel time, account for work or childcare.
All logistics.
All of it. And find the overlap with the clinic's sudden, rigid opening.
While your tooth is screaming at you.
Exactly.
The mental gymnastics required to do that are staggering.
They really are.
And let's look at the actual phrase the source uses. Suggesting times.
Mm.
It doesn't say accepting a time.
Oh, that's a great point.
It implies that the patient still has some agency. You are collaborating on the rescue effort.
That is a very subtle but empowering linguistic choice by the curriculum designers.
It is, isn't it?
An emergency opening isn't a blank check. It is a tiny, fragile slot.
A tiny window.
Yeah. By teaching the learner the vocabulary to suggest times, using phrases like, could we perhaps do Tuesday afternoon? Or, is there anything earlier? The podcast is teaching them how to actively participate in the scheduling dance.
So they aren't just at the mercy of the receptionist.
Exactly. It prevents the patient from feeling entirely powerless.
But then, we hit the ultimate wall.
The big one?
The final highlight in the source text. Confirming insurance.
Yeah, there it is.
This is the moment where the illusion of purely compassionate care completely drops away.
It evaporates.
The transactional commercial reality of the healthcare system is laid bare right there on the phone call.
It is the definitive gatekeeping mechanism.
Absolutely.
You can be in the worst pain of your life. You can successfully secure the only available emergency opening in the schedule. But if you cannot navigate the vocabulary of confirming insurance, the door slams shut.
You don't get in.
And not get the care.
And insurance vocabulary is incredibly dense.
It was its own language.
It's almost its own dialect. You go from the primal language of pain like ache, hurt, swollen, to this hyper-bureaucratic jargon.
Right. Policy number.
Group ID.
In-network.
Yeah.
It's intense.
Fictional Bruce has to dig through his wallet with one hand, hold his jaw with the other hand, and read a 12-digit alphanumeric code off a piece of plastic.
The inclusion of this specific step in a basic language lesson is very telling.
Oh, what does it tell you?
It acknowledges a really harsh truth about modern society.
Which is?
You cannot have a complete health conversation without having a financial conversation.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They are inextricably linked. The textbook is preparing the learner for the reality that proving your financial validity is given equal, if not greater, weight than describing your physical distress.
It fundamentally changes the caller's status.
It really does.
Think about it. When fictional Bruce is describing his toothache, his status is vulnerable patient.
And the receptionist's role is care coordinator.
Exactly. But the second the conversation shifts to confirming insurance, Bruce's status changes to contractual client or policyholder.
And the receptionist becomes a financial auditor.
The power dynamic shifts entirely.
It's a complete 180. The receptionist is no longer just asking, how can we help you?
What are they asking?
They are asking, do you have the right to be helped here?
Man, that's heavy.
It is. And the caller must produce the correct data to justify their existence in the system.
Think about the immense composure that requires
Yeah.
to suppress the panic of the emergency, suppress the physical pain, and calmly spell out your last name to ensure it matches the database.
It's a lot to ask of someone who is suffering.
It is. And this is why this audio program, this seemingly simple English lesson, is such vital educational content.
It really is.
It isn't sugarcoating the experience.
Not at all.
It is actively training the listener to handle the bureaucratic shock that always accompanies medical emergencies.
If we synthesize all these phases together, we see that the emergency dental appointment dialogue is not a single monolithic interaction.
No, it's not.
It is a multi-stage negotiation that requires distinct linguistic and cognitive shifts.
So let's trace that arc just to bring it all together.
Okay, let's do it.
First, we have the urgent setup. The caller has to bridge this massive gap of physical distance, relying entirely on vocal precision to convey a high-stakes need for an emergency opening.
Right. Then we transition into the categorization of the problem.
The symptom phase.
Yes. The caller must flatten their complex human experience into the standardized inputs required by the system, using clinical shorthand like toothache to efficiently fill the scheduling slot.
And finally, the administrative hurdles.
The gear shift.
The abrupt gear shift from subjective pain to objective logistics. The necessity of negotiating mutual availability by suggesting times.
And the ultimate, unavoidable hurdle of financial validation through confirming insurance.
Together, these elements form a highly structured, highly predictable framework.
They do. The source text has taken an experience that feels like pure chaos when you were living through it and revealed the underlying script.
The hidden rules.
Exactly. It shows the learner that even a medical emergency operates on a set of rules.
And knowing that script is half the battle.
Oh, absolutely.
When you understand the steps, when you know that the receptionist is going to ask for your symptoms, then your availability, and then your insurance information, you can prepare for it mentally.
You aren't caught off guard by the gear shifts.
Right. You can gather your insurance card before you dial the number.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at your calendar before you make the call.
You can manage your own cognitive load.
It transforms a moment of absolute vulnerability into a moment of managed process.
You move from reacting to the pain to executing a sequence of required tasks.
Which leads me to a final thought I want to leave you with today.
Okay.
Something to mull over long after this deep dive is finished.
What is it?
We have spent all this time analyzing the specific mechanics of a dental appointment.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about teeth and pain and scheduling and insurance. Mm-hmm. But if you step back and look at what this source text is truly teaching, it goes way beyond dentistry.
Way beyond.
Propose this to yourself. Mastering these kinds of dialogues, the ones featured in Health Conversations Made Easy, is actually a masterclass in modern self-advocacy.
It really is the language of survival in any bureaucratic framework.
Yes. When you strip away the immediate physical pain of fictional Bruce's toothache, what this source material is really exposing is a universal human necessity.
The necessity to be seen.
To be clearly heard,
Yeah.
to be accurately scheduled, and to be validated within complex, impersonal gatekeeping systems.
Right.
Think about the infrastructure of our world. Whether you are calling a mechanic because your car broke down, or calling a government agency about a tax issue,
Oh, that's a fun one.
right,
Yeah.
or calling a customer service hotline because your internet dropped during a crucial meeting.
The underlying architecture of the conversation is exactly the same.
It is. You have a pressing need, You must articulate that need using the specific terminology the institution recognizes.
You have to speak institution.
You must negotiate a resolution within their logistical constraints.
The tetra.
And you must validate your identity and your right to receive that resolution.
Being insurance.
Fictional Bruce's painful tooth is just the catalyst for the lesson.
It's just the vehicle.
The real takeaway is how to assert your existence and your needs into a system that is designed to process you merely as a data point.
And being able to do that calmly, clearly, and effectively over the phone, especially when you are under pressure.
That is real power.
It represents the ultimate form of agency. Taking control of the conversation ensures that you are not left behind or ignored by the systems that govern our daily lives.
And that is exactly why we dissect these seemingly simple texts.
Mm-hmm.
Because the blueprints for how society operates are often hidden right there in the most basic everyday dialogues.
They really are.
We want to warmly thank you for joining us today, for letting us get into the weeds of communication theory, administrative burden, and the surprising depth of a simple dental scenario.
It was a deep one.
It was. If you enjoyed unpacking this with us and want to keep exploring the hidden mechanics of the world around us, please make sure to subscribe to the show.
Yes, please subscribe.
We are constantly finding new texts, new sources, and new ways to look at the interactions we all take for granted. You won't want to miss our next deep dive.
Thank you so much for listening. Keep questioning the systems around you, and remember that every interaction has a structure.
Until next time, remember, every conversation with an institution is a negotiation. Make sure you know the script.